The Rams' big offseason acquisition has gone down with an injury. When will he be back, and what will the Rams do with him out? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor, join the party and subscribe to Locked On Rams YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, hit that like button, and let us know how concerned are you about the injuries early on at Rams training camp. My name is Doug McCain. Friends call me DMAC. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade. Dodgers Nation, 24/7 Sports, Bleacher Report, now the Rams for Locked On. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He's entering his 9th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's show, we're breaking down the injuries at Rams camp. How concerned should we be? Also, Puka Nacua, how he can avoid a sophomore slump, all that more. But first, this episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right, Travis, so not all the sunshine and rainbows in this first segment, so we're going to start off with something positive. I did get a chance to go see the new Wolverine Deadpool movie. I don't know if you know this. The Rams get a shout-out. They're driving in the car, Deadpool and Wolverine, and Deadpool looks over to Wolverine and says, friends don't let friends leave the house looking like they fight crime for the Los Angeles Rams. So, pretty cool stuff to hear our Rams shouted out in the movie.
Well, I do think there's something to it. It's small and it's that little incremental stuff along the way, but that would be an easy joke to let go by the way, or use a different team, or find some other joke to make. But the Rams, I think, in the Sean McVay era, in the recent Super Bowl, in the SoFi era, have become part of the zeitgeist. They just have. Like, Steelers, Patriots, Cowboys, these are teams that are always in the mix, and now the Rams are a part of that. Is pretty cool.
And that's one thing about the NFL. You get like dude who's in costume the whole game, right? You don't see him in the NBA, really not even that much in college football, but like dude who like literally like the Predator mask guy.
My favorite guy is, and I don't know if he's still around, if he is not, RIP to him, but Barrel Man in Denver was my all-time favorite guy. He was this older guy with like a big white prospector beard who was naked inside of a giant barrel that he wore over his shoulders. That guy was the man.
I know. I remember seeing that, like, it was that like that metal thing. I was like, isn't that kind of cold? Where it shouldn't be cold. Like, it's already cold there. But yeah, absolutely. But now we got to get into the news, and it's not good about the Rams' big offseason acquisition. According to Mike Garofalo of the NFL Network, Jonah Jackson suffered a bruised scapula in practice on Tuesday. And the new report says he's expected to miss around 6 weeks. Now, according to the Athletics' Jordan Rodriguez, the team is optimistic that Jackson won't miss significant regular season time. And she said that Jonah Jackson has a shoulder injury, a source said, but so far there's optimism he won't miss significant regular season time. Jackson was not present at today's walkthrough. Sean McVay to address reporters in standard presser tomorrow. So big takeaway there is not significant regular season time, meaning he will miss some regular season time. So we won't see him against his former team, against the Detroit Lions, presumably. I mean, we know the Rams aren't going to be playing their starters a ton in preseason anyway, but this definitely is a pretty big blow.
Yeah, I think it depends on kind of how you where your head is to begin on things like this. That if you're being optimistic and you're looking at this as the glass half full, it is he wasn't going to play in the preseason anyway. He wasn't going to step foot onto a field until they went to Detroit for Sunday Night Football in week 1. So he's really not missing much. He's a veteran, so he knows how to play NFL football. He doesn't necessarily have to be out there a ton during the preseason to be ready to go. You read the reports, you hear the reporting that he's not expected to miss a ton of regular season time. Okay, cool. Guys, this is somebody who started 12 games last year, who has missed some time with some injuries here or there. That's kind of been the bugaboo for him in his NFL career. That's the positive. He'll come back. He'll be ready to go. The Rams offensive line looks good. That's the glass half full. The opposite is so frequently we'll see something that happens in training camp that just lingers and never really gets back to where it's supposed to be, that he never really finds his groove with the new team the way that you would like him to, that this is something that he comes back in week 3, 4, 5, whatever it may be, and he's good, but maybe not quite what you thought it would be, that it never really clicks the way that you were anticipating. And the whole season is kind of derailed, or at least the offensive line portion of the season is derailed because of something that happened in training camp, and you never get the best version of one of your best free agents that you signed during the offseason. So I guess it depends on how quickly he comes back, how effective he is, but this could really swing two wildly different ways. This could be something by week 3 or 4 that we never even mention again, or this could be something that we're still talking about in week 12, 13, 14, that the Rams O-line never really got together because of what happened to Jackson in camp.
Yeah, and that really comes on the heels of Alec Jackson tweaking his ankle in practice. And the first thing that popped into my mind is, please let this not be a repeat of 2022. Let's hope that is not the case in this situation. And just looking back at our first episode on Jonah Jackson and the fact that we were happy that they focused on solidifying that offensive line, especially in the interior. Well, the big if was if he could stay healthy. This is someone who has dealt injuries throughout his career, and he didn't wait long to have one with the Rams. And the Rams, they signed him to a 3-year, $51 million contract, $34 million guaranteed.
Yep.
He made him the 6th highest paid guard in the NFL. They also went out and re-signed Kevin Dotson to $60 million per season. So, look, I mean, this was the focus for this Rams organization. So to suffer this early on, I definitely think it throws a wrench into the early part of training camp. Now, as far as what they're going to do, there's a reason why you gave Joe Noteboom $6 million this year not to start, was so he could provide some depth. But he's already plugged in at left tackle for Alec Jackson. So really, they're going to have to find some other options, whether it be a Zachary Thomas, whether it be a Bo Limmer, which we'll talk about here in a minute. So the good thing is there is some depth pieces in place, but the best thing for this team, obviously, is Jonah Jackson just to get healthy as soon as possible.
Yeah, look, this is the NFL. You're going to need your backups. You're going to need, the rosters are tight, and this is not college football. In the NFL, everybody plays. Right. There are no guys that just stand around and don't do anything. Everybody plays in the NFL. Everybody gets on the field. Everybody contributes. Where it gets dicey is that you start dipping into depth before you've even started the season. That's where you kind of start to feel a little certain way about this, because you're right. If it were just AJ Jackson or just Jonah Jackson, you're like, okay, this is life in the NFL. But when it's both of them all of a sudden, and your depth piece for both of those positions is the same guy in Joe Noteboom, all right, well, that means now all of a sudden we're into somebody else. And now you're asking very different questions about, do you move Steve Avila back to guard? Do you put Limmer back in center? Now all of a sudden we're filling holes with holes and creating new holes. And this is where it gets really, really complicated, and it really starts to stress your depth. This is something that everybody's going to have to deal with, but there is a point of no return. There is a breaking point. You brought it up. The season after the Super Bowl, this thing started happening day one against the Bills, opening night of the NFL season, and it just snowballed from there, and they could never get on top of it until maybe the last 5 weeks of the season. Part of it was Baker Mayfield coming back, but part of it was they finally had the same 5 guys in the same 5 spots for about a month. They went 2-3. That's not good, but it's not dreadful the way that they had been earlier in the season. So this is a thing. His return, AJ Jackson's return, these are things to look at and how effective they are early in the season, because once you start pressing on that depth, now you're down to virtually nothing behind the depth pieces. It's a big deal.
Absolutely. And also building that chemistry and continuity early on is something that takes a hit as well. But we're going to continue to break down what this injury means for the Rams, and a rookie backup that might have his opportunity and he could take full advantage. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
All right, let's talk about the Game Time app. Right, I think a lot of people, if I was watching the Dodgers last night down in San Diego, I think a lot of San Diegans use that Game Time app to go fill up Dodger Star Petco Park with Dodger fans. Not a great night, but the point is, it's summer, it's baseball season, and Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting your tickets faster and easier. And this is awesome. prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer you get to first pitch. So if you want to take in a few ball games before the end of the summer, if you want to get in a few regular season games before the playoffs start, if you want to think about playoff tickets, the Game Time app is a great way to buy your Major League Baseball tickets. Last minute tickets, flash deals, views from your seat, everything that you could possibly want. And it's not just baseball, right? It's comedy, it's concerts, it's theater, everything that's in your area. And of course, all in pricing. Total upfront, no surprise fees at checkout. I love that. It's not that, oh, that's a good price. You get to the end and wait, what? That's not what I said. Not at Game Time, right? Toggle that feature and all your fees are built right in. So take the guesswork out of buying your Major League Baseball tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create that account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a special shout out to those everyday listeners out there watching and listening to every single episode. We can't tell you how much we appreciate you. And you can join that Everyday Listeners Club too. Just watch and listen to every episode and you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. All right, Travis, here we're going to pick up where we left up on this topic. And you brought it up. Steve Avila, the idea, could Steve Avila move back to guard? And my take on that is there's just been so much time invested in getting back to that center position, learning at this level. It's not something that I would entertain. I mean, you look at the backup options now, Zachary Thomas and Joe Noteboom, they're getting first-team reps in practice. So Steve Avila, we know he's capable as a guard. We also know that the potential for him to be an all-pro is at center.
Yeah, I'll use our other team that you and I talk a lot about, Doug. I don't know if the plan was ever to have guys like River Ryan and Robleski and these guys start a bunch of important games, but sometimes you just have to do what you have to do, right? That you don't have a lot of optionality. I get it that they wanted to move him to center really from the second the season ended last year. They made the announcement Steve Avila is going to be our center for next season. I think that's where they want him, and I agree with you. I think that's where he'll probably spend the vast majority, if not all of the season. We know that he played every single snap last year at left guard. He's a durable guy. But at some point, just the needs of the team and the versatility of the rest of your offensive line comes into play. He can swing back and forth. So if you can get some production at center from someone else and get another really high-level performer at guard like Avila, we know he can do there, maybe that's a fix. I agree with you. It would be my last resort. It would be the very last thing that I do. But once you have two guys down and one guy is the backup for both spots, the way that Noteboom is, you're going to have to plug some holes. You only got so many fingers to stick into the dam, right? And right now there's a lot of holes in that dam, especially on the left side.
That's for sure. I mean, I don't think Noteboom would be my first choice at guard, but I mean, he's the next man up that they really have invested in. So he's going to get the opportunities depending on how quickly Alex Jackson can get back. But look, what I'm thinking too is you got joint practices next week. You're going to need some bodies just to be able to execute and go out there and just continue this. And I think for me, this is a situation where Bo Limmer gets an opportunity because Bo Limmer is someone who they're really high on for the NFL draft. He's someone that definitely slid. A lot of people thought he was going to go higher, and he has that positional versatility that they covet as well. If you look at his college career, he made 41 starts. He had 28 at right guard, 12 at center, 1 at left guard. So he's also told reporters that back at NFL Draft Combine that he can see himself playing at the 3 interior positions and he sees himself as a guard. So I do want to see what Bo Limmer can do. He was one of the strongest at the Senior Bowl. He actually did a really nice job blocking Braden Fisk. It was one of his highlights. So I think Bo Limmer could get his opportunity here.
He's going to get an opportunity for sure. And look, let's go back to the positivity. Let's go back to the glass being half full. What this does, while it's a drag that Jackson is down, while it's a drag that the other Jackson is down as well, it does create opportunities. It creates opportunities for younger players who may not have gotten an opportunity to shine and join practices, maybe in a preseason game, to really kind of say, all right, well, maybe we got something here. Maybe we can put him out there. And, the Wally Pipp is the great example of this. Take a day off. Luke Garrett goes in there. He doesn't come out for the next 600 years, and he never leaves the field. Opportunities are there. It's whether or not guys can take advantage of them. Who knows? Maybe they got a guy right there that you can put right in there, and Matthew Stafford's comfortable with him. Kyren Williams and Blake Corum are comfortable running behind him. He fits, like you're talking about, that continuity with the offensive line. You get a few weeks, a few preseason games to kind of work with everybody along the way. And the next thing you know, it's not that Jonah Jackson's going to lose his job. That's not what we're talking about, but you have a real depth piece along the way that allows you to feel very comfortable, maybe sliding some other people into some different spots.
I'm telling you, look, I'm not going to take a victory lap here and say I was probably the first person on the planet to say that Puka Nacua is going to be a star. I'm not going to sit here and do that.
You were, by the way.
I'm giving that to Bo Limmer. I don't think he's going to do it in year one.
All right.
But I'm telling you, I'm giving him that juice. I'm telling you, if you look at 39 reps on the bench press, 36.5-inch verticals, tied second amongst offensive linemen. He's strong. I mean, he can squat 700 plus pounds, had a 9.8 relative athletic score. I don't know how they picked him up so late in the draft, but I'm telling you, this guy has got the goods. And I think that, maybe he's not going to be a starter this season, but I'm very interested to see what Sean McVay has to say about Bo Limmer once he gets plugged in.
Well, like you mentioned with those stats about his performance in the weight room and everything else, the Rams have a very clear identity on that offensive line this year that maybe has not necessarily been the way that they've gone about it in previous years. Last year was kind of the transitional period where it started. They are a physical group of people. We've talked about how physical Avila is. We know about Kevin Dotson, right? Rob Havenstein is just a mountain of a dude over on the right side. And if Jackson, the law firm and left side of your offensive line of Jackson and Jackson can be those nasty guys, great. You're going to be able to put your hands on people and move them around. Limmer, I should say, is one of those guys that maybe can do the same thing. They have a very specific type of offensive line that they want to put together, and he seems to fit the bill pretty well.
Absolutely. And that really was the entire approach for this newly revamped offensive line and the style of plays. They wanted to go at guys and attack guys instead of going side to side in a wide zone, right? They wanted to go at guys and get some real road graders. So that's what really was all about, to just change the kind of body types and the big physical offensive linemen that they went after. But hopefully in a perfect world, Jonah Jackson can somehow, some way be ready for the opener against the Lions. But it does seem like they're going to.
Yeah, the opener would be ideal, but what my hope is the opener. My more realistic is, let's have him be fully functional, fully healthy somewhere in September, and then play the rest of the season and hope that he stays healthy. My fear is that they try to get him back sooner than maybe is perfect, and then it's just something that lingers all season long, and you don't get to realize the full potential of what you have in that player. He's a really good player. This was, arguably their number one free agent acquisition that they went out and did and acquired. So now all of a sudden, the very last thing you want is him less than the best version of himself. So I'd rather be a little more patient, a little more deliberate in getting him back and try to fill some holes for as long as you can so he can be at his best. Because the very last thing I think, Doug, that you and I or any Rams fans, any of the everydayers would like to do is we're talking sometime in November. It's like, man, Jackson has just never looked right. That's the scary part. Take your time, get him back, make him at his best.
I agree. It's the number one priority. Once he gets back, he stays back, and there's nothing from that injury remaining. And also, let's not forget, his top priority is to protect number 9, and that's really what this season is completely predicated on. So you absolutely have to keep him back. He can take my scapula. I don't need it. Let me know. It's probably not as good as his, but hopefully a speedy recovery for Jonah Jackson. But coming up next, we got some camp nuggets we're going to get into on Locked On Rams.
I love sports. I love them, right? I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, if you're listening to Locked On Rams, you love sports too. We all love them so much, we never want them to stop. But this is kind of the low point of the season, or at least that's what you think, because as the playoffs are winding down and everything else, we get fewer and fewer games. But The sports can sports like you want them to, because FanDuel keeps the sports going whenever we want. All you have to do is open up the FanDuel app and dream up bets anytime that you are in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel's hooking us all up, all customers, with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, daily. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Doug and I both love baseball. Doug and I both love talking about our favorite teams. So you can head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. Those division odds are getting closer and closer. They'll be all right. They'll get healthy. You know what I'm talking about. Go check it out. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Go play some FanDuel. Go have some fun.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we got some camp nuggets we're going to get into, and we're going to talk about the tight end really quick here, because it looks like this is going to be a different year for the tight end usage. With the addition of Colby Parkinson, Davis Allen has continued to get reps at the tight end position. It looks like he could have a larger role in the offense this season with Tyler Higbee out. So I think for me, the big thing is the blocking, and how the addition of Colby Parkinson, someone who's really hung his hat on his ability to block and has kind of an untapped potential as a receiver, could get that opportunity. And I think this could help Cooper Kupp avoid injury and stay fresh, because let's be honest, Cooper Kupp's a dog out there when it comes to being a great blocking receiver. Sure. And the more that the tight ends can take care of that, the less it's on him. And that could make him back to where he was, hopefully at least close to that this season.
Well, I think, kind of the first thing that we were talking about comes together with the last thing that we're talking about, right? If you have an offensive line that is not firing on all five cylinders, right, and you need to have some help somewhere else, where's the first place that help is going to come from? It's going to come from the tight end position. The next place it comes from is from your running backs. If you have to leave help in to make sure that Matthew Stafford stays upright, then the opportunities for the tight ends to be playmakers gets reduced. So if the offensive line is as healthy as it can be, now all of a sudden Parkinson and Allen and some guys that I know we're very excited about getting to see as weapons, it gets uncorked a little bit. So getting that offensive line healthy, or finding some capable guys to fill in there, is a big part of making sure that your tight ends are able to play more of a role in your offense. Parkinson, I think you and I are a little bit different on this. I'm a little bit more interested to see what Davis Allen has as a playmaker as opposed to Parkinson. Parkinson has been in the league. He has not really impacted, and I understand situations different in Seattle than it is in Los Angeles, but I think that if you are a real offensive weapon, they find ways to use you. I think we saw that a little bit with Davis Allen towards the end of the season. So I'd like to see him get some real good looks and some opportunities. And Matthew Stafford clearly trusts him a little bit. We started to see him used more in the offense toward the end of the season, got into the end zone. So I'm excited to see those guys get going a little bit, but I think the health of the offensive line may prevent that from happening in the short term.
Yeah, I think both of them are definitely going to be used as red zone targets. And you look at the catch radius of Davis Allen, and he just feels like he's someone that's a vacuum there with his ability to catch the ball. Parkinson, though, he definitely has made some impressive plays at training camp. By all reports, you're seeing some highlights from Colby Parkinson. I think that's something that really opened the eyes of the Rams coaches, and as far as their front offices, they saw him as an underutilized tight end. There was an untapped potential that, because he was buried in the depth chart in Seattle as far as the role they had for him, they knew what he was capable of. So I definitely think that's kind of where his breakout's going to be, is as a pass catcher, as someone that can catch you, 5 to 7 to 8 touchdowns in the red zone, hopefully. And I do think you're going to see more 12 personnel this season. I mean, we know it's always going to be 11 personnel with Sean McVay, but I think that 12 personnel is going to get an uptick in usage this season. And I think one of the reasons why is you have a different type of tight end. You have young, you have youth, you have blocking tight ends. And look, we know Tyler Higbee is fantastic, has really been a stalwart for this organization, but I definitely think they've been kind of ready to switch things up for the last couple of seasons. And we might see kind of what we saw in 2018 with Gerald Everett and Tyler Higbee, where they combined for 57 catches. So then we're just going to see more 12 personnel, just more opportunities for tight ends in general.
Yeah, it's the one part of the Sean McVay offense that I don't think we've gotten the full look at what it is. Like, we've seen what it looks like with an elite running back, Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley was the best running back in football for a couple of years, or if he wasn't, he was really close to it. We've seen what it looks like with an elite quarterback, Matthew Stafford, elite wide receivers, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. I'll throw Robert Woods in there as well. They had a lot of weapons at wide receiver. We've seen all of it except for tight end, right? And I think you nailed it. I think that combination of Higbee and Everett, at least for a season, was kind of interesting in what they could do, because Gerald Everett caught a lot of passes. Tyler Higbee caught a lot. You put those two things together, and that's a real weapon. Maybe it's kind of a ham and egg situation with these two guys, but I think, as somebody who's watched every Rams game since they came back to Los Angeles, who's been covering this team since they came back to Los Angeles, that's the one position where it felt like they haven't got it fully unlocked. They've come close a few times with Higbee and Everett, like you mentioned, but we really haven't seen it get unlocked. I think that's why you and I and a lot of Rams fans were interested in Bowers during the draft season, that they could get their hands on a playmaker like that. But, this is the group they have, and I'm excited to see it.
Absolutely. Don't sleep on Parkins. I mean, 6'7", 251, 4'7", 40. Yeah. I just think that he hasn't come close to realizing his potential. And also, it's kind of one of those things, too, where the Rams go out there and sign one of the youngest free agents on the market. He's only 25 for $22.5 million. I'm like, they must see something in him that says, okay, we got to go get this guy, and he's going to be a big part of this offense. But hey, let's see what the Rams do. I'm excited about Parkinson, this tight end group. And I think Davis Allen showed us a lot last season, his limited opportunities. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.